The symptoms are consistent with death cap mushrooms.
It's a really shocking situation and quite devastating.
Can you tell us where the mushrooms came from?
While police await the report on the cause of the poisoning, today claims a family friend has revealed Erin Patterson, an expert forager, whose whole family would pick mushrooms every year.
Can you tell us a bit more about the lunch?
What I can tell you is that I just can't fathom what has happened.
But Erin Patterson is adamant the mushrooms were bought. The lunch containing a mix of button mushrooms bought from a supermarket chain and dried mushrooms purchased from an Asian grocery store in Melbourne months earlier.
And I'm so devastated about what's happened.
Unfortunately, she can't remember which store, leaving local growers stumped.
I cannot imagine how it would get into a store.
Joseph Sestokis is an exotic mushroom grower in Gippsland in Victoria's east. He reckons it's impossible to produce poisonous mushrooms for sale.
A poisonous mushroom needs a tree to grow with. A commercial grower can't grow death caps in the way that we grow mushrooms. We grow entirely different mushrooms that don't have a symbiosis with a tree. And that death caps have a symbiosis with a tree. That's why they grow in the wild.
Despite there being no calls from authorities for a recall, Joseph says the uncertainty is creating fear.
We were at a farmer's market on Saturday and it was a little bit unpleasant at moments. It does attract certain people to say sometimes silly or uneducated things. Clearly it's at the front of some people's minds. People should be confident about getting more mushrooms from the places they've had them from the past because they're completely safe.
Georgia Beattie from the Australian Mushroom Growers Association joins us now. Georgia, speaking generally and away from the specifics of this case, do we have poisonous mushrooms on our supermarket or specialist store shelves?
Absolutely not. It's the spawn we use, which is like mushroom seeds, are commercially grown for our mushroom farms in Australia. So it's genetically not possible.
What about imported dried goods?
So mushrooms in Australia are 96% water. So when you dry them, they shrivel down to exactly the same product that you'll see on the shelves. So Australia has very, very high health and safety standards.
So say something got through the net and there was a poisonous mushroom that turned up somewhere. What would happen at that point? Like, would there be a recall or what?
So if that did happen, we've got a very rigorous recall system in place. But the biggest crime that the mushroom makes on the shelf is it loses weight as time goes by because it's 96% water. So it's the mushroom industry is actually very boring, and so this is wild for us.
So if there was any suspicion on the part of authorities that there were poisonous mushrooms being sold around the country, would there have been a recall already by now?
Oh, I mean, absolutely. But we've got audit systems and random inspections, random lab tests that happen to make sure that it can't be tampered with. Additionally, this is common practice in Australia, and that's why we're so lucky in Australia.
Georgia, one of the things you talked about was mushroom spawn, that all the mushrooms are grown from. At the moment, there's talk about these deadly death cap mushrooms. Do they come from spawn that can be produced commercially?
So we've got a levy that's part of our mushroom growing group. We spend a lot of money telling people don't go and forage mushrooms in the wild. You'll never hear a mushroom farmer foraging. It's just far too dangerous. There's not spawn available that's not a commercially driven and designed product.
Hold on, though. Is that just big mushrooms stopping me from getting out there and getting them for free?
There's a reason why mushroom farmers don't go and forage. Think of it this way. A mushroom is like a sponge, and so it will suck in everything that's in its environment. It can suck up lead and all sorts of things when it's in the wild. In Australia, my compost takes 7 weeks to make. Every input that goes into that compost is tested, certified, checked, audited. And that's the case right across Australian fresh produce. And so this is why stories like this, we have to come out as Australian farmers and say, listen, farming's hard in Australia. We've got all these certifications. This is just impossible to happen on the retail shelf.
So there's been a bit more negativity than usual around mushrooms in the last few weeks. We saw before a farmer getting hassled at the markets. So I wanted to give you this opportunity to make us feel more positive generally about mushrooms.
Well, it's a good gut product. So whether you're looking for vitamin D, immune sort of help, as well as it's a prebiotic product.
And if you're in a Mario Kart race, it makes you go faster.
Exactly. It's the powerful one.
Georgia, thank you for your time and for your passion for mushrooms.
Thank you very much for having me on.